Yeah, so we do reserve everybody's time, so we'll go ahead and get started, and more people will be sure to join us. Good morning to everyone. My name is Beth Rossner. I'm the acting CEO of the Berkeley Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank you all for joining us today for our 6th and final session of our Berkeley Business Bootcamp. This was made possible by a generous sponsorship from the Berkeley Public Library, and I want to thank them for the support over the last 6 months. If you've attended any of our past ones, thank you. All of them are archived on our website. We'll drop that link in the chat box. I want to thank Andy Godwin, our event director, for helping to produce these events over the last 6 months. And now I'd like to turn it over to Jeff Finley from the library. He's going to give us a few updates on what's going on over there, and then we'll get started. Take it away, Jeff.
Oh, thank you, Beth. Welcome, everyone, to today's last installment of what we call the Berkeley Business Bootcamp. I do want to start this by saying thank you to the Chamber of Commerce. In particular, Andy and Beth have been just absolutely wonderful to work with, and they're great people there. Berkeley Chamber is a wonderful resource for the community, for the business community in Berkeley, particularly. I just wanted to go over the other classes that we've gone through. We've in this boot camp, we've learned how to craft business plans, how to find a profitable niche for your business, find the networking. We learned about human resources for the small business. We've learned about how to increase your business's visibility on Google. And today we're going to be learning how to find your market and your competitors. And there's so much more that we can find with ReferenceUSA. In particular, I think the presentations by David Mitroff were fantastic, wonderful resources. I wanted to introduce today's presenter. We have Bill Carlson. Actually, if you look on your screen, you'll see that there's 2 Bill Carlsons. He's the one with glasses. Bill has been with the company that provides the database for the library, ReferenceUSA, for about over a dozen years. And he helps people like yourself get the most out of the resource. Now, ReferenceUSA is a very, very powerful database. Database is just a scary word for a source of information. I use it every day for finding information, helping people with the library. And I encourage you as business owners and business people to start using it, because it is a tremendous database, a tremendous source of information that's all free to you because the Berkeley Public Library has already bought it. And I guess I should walk you through how to get there, because there's a complicated process. You have to live in California. If you live in California, you can get a Berkeley Library card. You do have to have a Berkeley Library card to use this database with the Berkeley Public Library's website. And now I'm going to share my screen and to show you how to get to it. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep, good to go, Jeff.
Very good. All right. So you're going to start off by going to the berkeleypubliclibrary.org. Very easy thing to remember. Hover over Explore, and you get this drop-down menu where eLibrary appears. Click on eLibrary. And then I like to go, there's many different paths to get here, but I like to go to the alphabetical list of all the different databases. And you see the databases all listed here in alphabetical order, and we want to go down to ReferenceUSA. Down here. Oh, we just had a problem. I just did it and it worked fine. Not sure what the problem was here, but normally what you're going to see is, you'll see a place to enter your library card number. And then you'll go in and I think there's a screen that says you have to agree to some terms or whatever. You do that,
terms and conditions,
and then you get right into the database. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Bill. By the way, Bill's presentations are always lively and entertaining, so I hope you have a few smiles on your faces this Thursday morning. And with that, please, Bill, take it away.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jeff. And I'll actually give you some insights that where it said that it did not recognize the library's referring URL. That simply means you have a cookie now on your system, Jeff, and you can clear out your cookies and cache, go back through the library's website, and you'll get right in. No worries. No worries. So everybody should be seeing the version for, we just rebranded, and it's now Reference Solutions versus Reference USA, but so many people know us from that former name. Gosh, we've been in business as a company now. Next year, we will celebrate our 50th year. So the Reference USA product has been in libraries since 1992. We used to deliver it on a floppy disk, and then they would upload it to a few of their public computers, right? And that's how people would get access to us. But who remembers the vice president who invented the internet? Beth does. So yeah, when Al Gore invented the internet, then of course we decided, hey, what a great platform, right? So we rolled out the first version of the Reference USA platform. I've been with the company since 2008, and this is the fourth version or fourth generation of the database. So we continue to enhance it, continue to add more tools by which to search information. So the primary office is located here in Omaha, Nebraska, and there are about 1,100 of us here. About 350 people actually make phone calls day in and day out, Monday through Saturday, to call businesses to verify information like name of business, certainly the address information. Since they answered the phone, we know the phone number is right. We try and capture the number of employees, who that owner or manager might be of that business, that line of business or lines of business that they may be in, and the square footage of that facility or that office. And then we overlay that in the database. And there's a variety of ways to search that. And today we really wanted to focus on both B2B sales as well as B2C sales. So I'll certainly be covering both of those in the database. And we have all of these various modules that are available here through the Berkeley Public Library. For example, with our US business database, that certainly is the one that gets the lion's share of attention oftentimes. That information, as we update, as we make those verification phone calls, we're pushing that information out weekly. So every Thursday into Friday morning, any new changes, any new updates will get pushed live that Thursday into Friday morning. Whereas our historical information, that's technically being updated at the beginning of every year. Our Canadian business information, this is monthly. Our jobs and internships is daily. Our US new business filings, that's through the Secretary of State's office. That information is being updated weekly. Our US healthcare, our consumer lifestyles, and our Canadian white pages, those are all monthly. And then our US new movers, new homeowners. This information we're getting through the National Change of Address. We're fully licensed to bump our database up against that National Change of Address. So we're updating this weekly, and we'll archive that information in there for up to a year. So you can learn about new people who've come to your community. I can't think of a single business that doesn't want to know about perhaps new people who've come into their community. And there's some really interesting ways that you can search this. I'll certainly show you a number of those. So with the US business database, we'll do this one first. I'll launch this first. No matter what module I come into, I'll always get to that quick search first. Great for looking up maybe one company, maybe finding an executive by first name, last name, looking at all businesses in a given city or state, or even doing a reverse phone number lookup. I do want to show you this. So if we're looking at Berkeley, I want to show you all those verified businesses that we have across Berkeley. We do have unverified records, and I'll explain that in a second here. So I have over 9,000 businesses across Berkeley that are verified. The tool I want to show you is this charts tool. It will break it down, at least initially, by the SIC code that those businesses are under. So in this case, the top 7 SIC codes would be physicians and surgeons in that first position, simply because they're all 1099 guys and gals. So they are, in essence, their own entity. Then we have restaurants, attorneys, dentists, etc., and a few marriage counselors and family counselors. Then I can get a full report that's 61 pages in length with the primary SIC code that those businesses are under, that definition for that SIC code, and then the number of records that apply. So if, for example, I needed to get to beauty salons, I could just click on this 108 and it'll hyperlink me right into those particular beauty salons. So no, you can certainly use that tool if you would like. And I can also switch this up, say, for example, by employment size. So overlaying those employment size numbers, I've got 1 through 4 at nearly 62%. So of those businesses, those 4,500 plus businesses in your community, they employ 1 to 4 employees. All of this can be printed off or can be made part of a PowerPoint presentation. So know that that is always available, and we're looking at the entire community. You might be looking at 1 or 2 or 3 different industries. It just depends on how you want to build your search. We did all of that by simply putting in the city and state. Most of the time you'll be in advanced search. And by the way, additional filters, that goes to the same place. So on this left-hand column, and by the way, feel free to send through any questions you may have. I'd rather answer those questions as we're going along. So send those through on the chat and I'll be able to get that information.
Hey, Bill, we do have a question. The Berkeley search, will you find businesses that do not have a business license?
Say that one more time.
If you search in this database, will you find businesses that do not have a business license?
Yes, because we're not getting that information through any of those sources. So if a business has not a license, we may still know about them because maybe they advertised either in Yellow Pages or maybe they were online and we learned about them that way and we captured that information that way. In fact, we have a lot of, I used to cover the southeastern United States, and I worked with a number of different government agencies that would use the database to identify those businesses who hadn't got the appropriate licensure. So
thanks, Bill.
yeah.
This is Liz. I'm with the City of Berkeley Office of Economic Development. I was the one that asked that question. Can you just clarify a bit more about what sources you're using? You mentioned a few there, the Yellow Pages or advertising, but the numbers that we're showing there don't exactly match up with our numbers. So I'm just curious what's in or what's out.
Right. So we're definitely using, we still get the phone book sent to us like we started with in 1972. Nowadays it's digital, thank goodness. So we're using that as the primary trigger to start our calling campaign, but we're also capturing information through the Secretary of State's office, some county courthouse records. Not necessarily every county in the United States participates or allows us that access, but certainly where we can get that through those sources and then picking up the phone and calling.
And is there a way for local agencies to contribute to your database? Like, I know I spent a lot of time in the last few months building out our list, and we would be happy to make sure that's synced up into yours.
You know, we don't do that simply because there are so many variables. If you think about all the communities across the United States, we'd have too many variables to build in.
Okay, so people should just see this as one. I think just for the folks on this call, I just want to make sure they know this is a great data set, but there are others that are in this particular area that might be complementary, and it's not 100% the same.
Oh, yes, exactly. Exactly. You're probably very familiar with Dun and Bradstreet. You know, they've been in business for eons, well over 100 years. So obviously, they're going to have their methods by which they collect that data, right? So those businesses that need a DUNS number, or those people that are using their credit services, are usually in the database. But those smaller businesses that don't need a DUNS number because they're not going to do any contractor work, or aren't going to have a DUNS number because they're not going to use their credit services, they won't be in that universe. So we're inclusive, we try and be inclusive of everyone, right? And I will show you how you can certainly communicate on any given record to us about information that could be updated or added. So with this said, under company name, when we were on quick search, I could look up one company. This will allow me to look up multiple companies. I could put in, for example, if IBM were one that I wanted to look at, I could add that to my group. You know, this is certainly a go-to for me when I'm on the road is Starbucks, simply because Ted has never told me about the other coffee greats out there in California. I'm sorry about that. I'll get in the know.
Pete's.
Pete's.
P-E-E-T apostrophe
Oh,
S. Much
okay.
better coffee than Starbucks. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
So I can add any business by name and then just select the geography that's important to me. Otherwise, we'll always produce that company name. We'll always produce this executive information where we have it. Perhaps as part of your business need, maybe you need to look at just those businesses, perhaps with an owner present. If that were the case, you could forego seeing any of those other businesses that might have a manager or a CEO, etc. So no, you can get that. All of this information will always be presented where we can get that. Business type. Oftentimes, this is the simplest way to do it. You just put in whatever type of industry you're looking at or type of business and then search for that SIC code. I'll show you that in a second. I do like to point out the major industry group, which is just SIC codes. When Uncle Sam was managing this process, it was only a 4-digit code at length. So we've actually added to it. So for example, with construction, I get a definition for each of those codes. And then as you can see, I can get into another segment that gives me that 4-digit code. And that was as granular as it got. We added 2 additional codes to give you that kind of granularity. So if you only needed to see those types of businesses that do fire damage restoration work, for example, you could drive in just those kinds of businesses. So a great way to be able to kind of stair step into what it is that you need to be able to get access to. So certainly an option versus the keyword search. I'll explain this geography here in a second, especially this map-based search tool. You might find this very user-friendly. Phone kind of speaks for itself. Number of employees. So about 72% of the businesses will give us an actual number. We've got 3 employees or we have 18. We'll capture that number and overlay that information inside the record. If they don't respond to that question, what we'll do is we'll look at their peers and then we'll apply a range. So if you see an actual number, you know we got that in our phone call. If you don't see that, but rather a range, you know that we applied that because they didn't respond. And conversely, we learned a long time ago, probably 1973, that you don't ever ask a business how much money they're making and not have that phone call perhaps end rather abruptly. So we actually have a team that put together an algorithm and they use information like the number of employees that they have, the line of business they're in, how long they've been in business, and where they're physically in business at because of the variables that apply to that. You know, certainly in your area, it may be more costly to do business in San Francisco than in Oakland or vice versa. So we take into account that information. And then we also get some data through the Bureau of Labor and Statistics in order to be able to finish out that algorithm. So if it is a privately held company, that's going to always be modeled information. If it's publicly traded, of course, we're going to capture that information from their 10K report. And I would also point out business expenditures. This is also modeled by that same group of folks. If you wanted to, you could certainly include or exclude home-based businesses if that were important to you by selecting nothing, of course. And if you were doing a general search in an area, you may end up with home-based businesses in that area. But like I say, you could either exclude those or maybe only look at home-based businesses. We'll always give this financial information where that's available. I do like to point out under special selects, I like to use the years in the database, especially, you can think of it a couple of different ways. If you wanted to know about those businesses that are newer in an area, you could say, hey, show me those businesses that are 2 or 3 years old and produce just that universe. Or maybe you would want to see those businesses that have been around for a while. You could certainly do that as well. You know, if 12 years were your marker, you could include all those years and just get those businesses, even based on type. It doesn't matter. So no, you can use any of these filters. Professionals, all are one. This is referring to doctors, dentists, CPAs. We were told by our library partners that in some cases, people wanted to make mailing lists and they were pulling up records, multiple records for, say, like an attorney's office. They only wanted one primary versus seeing all attorneys. So we added the ability to change that up from all to one and just get one primary at that office. That would help with controlling some of those costs associated with that mail campaign. And then we do give you a variety of ways to omit information. Here in Omaha, besides just steaks that we like to send out in the mail, we also have a bank here in town that started a little thing called a credit card. So if I wanted to, in fact, if we were looking at Omaha, I have a lot of ATM machines and we have those records. So if I didn't want ATMs to show up in my search, maybe I was doing a general search in an area, kind of like I mentioned with the home-based businesses, and maybe I don't want these ATMs to show up. So I can select that, drive in that SIC code for automated teller machines. It'll still include the bank location, but it will exclude a second record for that ATM machine. So no, you could always use anything to obviously omit information, including previously saved searches. So that's one of the features of the database. You can create your own personal account and save your searches. What we save are the steps that you used to build your search, not the records themselves. And then you'll be presented with the latest and greatest whenever you go back in.
Hey,
So let's,
Bill, I got 2 questions for you.
excellent.
Does the database include email addresses?
Great question. I'll answer that in a moment.
Okay, great. SIC codes can be long and tricky to distinguish. Do you have
Yes.
any suggestions as to how to navigate these classifications?
Well, we do give you this tends to be the easiest way. So if I wanted restaurants, which I do, I'll just select that and then search for that. And the system will always give me the SIC code that's associated with all restaurants. If somebody, maybe it's a rainy night in Berkeley. No, that's a rainy night in Georgia. You could spend some time if you wanted to in our listing of all those SIC codes, but I don't know that we necessarily would probably want to do that on any given night. But that they are available. So I would just, if I were looking for restaurants, which I really want to show you this example, and then I can answer the email question as well. I'm going to select all restaurants, and notice we have gotten very granular with these as well. So if you only wanted certain types of restaurants, notice we've added that 2 digits plus another in order to get you that much more granular. So if I only wanted Hawaiian restaurants, I could get to that. Even to the point where you can get to certain chains. So now it becomes a 9-digit number. So we've made it that much more granular for you. But I'm just going to look at all restaurants, and we're just going to do this across your county. So I'll select California. And then there's Alameda, and I have a total number of restaurants across the county of 4,211. Now, notice I'm only looking at those that are verified records. So how does a record become unverified? When we go to make our annual phone call, let's say we don't reach them. We don't stop at that point. We'll continue to try and reach them. In fact, we'll go as far as attempting for 2 full years, a dozen times total, to reach that business to keep it verified. If at that point we've found nothing about its closing and we're not able to reach them, we'll move them into that unverified status. So I would still search that information periodically, because there could be some good information for you. Just because we haven't found them doesn't mean that they're not there, right? So know that you could include those records if you would like to do so. The other thing I like to point out is, notice I'm searching all SIC codes. If I switch this up to primary for restaurants, watch what happens to my total now. So it dropped it down to 3,600. So it got rid of businesses like bowling alleys that have a restaurant in them, or a movie theater that offer a dining experience. Those businesses that their primary line of business isn't that of a restaurant. We've gotten rid of those. And then I can certainly get to these results. And since we have a question about email addresses, I'll mention this right here. If you select this more information, it will direct you to contact our office that we sell those. As you can imagine, if we had email addresses for these businesses across the country, how long it would take for those business email addresses to become sour. I mean, with all the access that people have across the country to this data, it wouldn't be very good, very long. So we do sell that information, and there's 2 ways we sell it. You can either buy it and walk away, and you get to use that for a year, or you can hire us to do the campaign for you. We do it either way. And this total is a bit misleading. I would suggest to you that the coverage typically is going to be about 65% of this total. This number that's represented here is the number of email addresses that my company, Data Axle, owns, but we work with another brokerage firm that has a much larger total that we can get access to. So think of it as going to be about 65% coverage on average. Some particular industries are going to be higher than others. Let's do this. I'm going to chart this again since we were just in there. And now notice, no longer does it play out the SIC code simply because we're only looking at one code. So now it goes to, in this case, the city, and gives me that listing of those cities across the county. And of course, I can use any of these other options as well. Let's look at it from an employment standpoint. We know that 1 to 4 was the largest when we were looking at your entire community. What is it for? Notice, so 1 to 4 is in the second position down here versus the 5 to 9 range. So we do give you that kind of insight as well. And again, you can print this off or make that part of a PowerPoint presentation. I know that lenders love this kind of insight. I also have a tool here. I can put this on our density map, our heat map. And so it's going to look at the entire county, and it's going to give me that kind of view. Let me see if I can't get a little closer. Well, that is not the view I wanted. I should have a much, there were 30 some, yeah, there were 2,700 that I have listed there. I'm going to have to back out of this, and I'll show you this in another example. Well, that's odd. I've not seen that one do that. So lists, I've got certainly that heat map. I can also download this information, and it states how many downloads I can do. Think of these as batches. So I can do 250 records at a time. There are 25 records per page. So 250 would be 10 pages. If I wanted all of these records, I can put a check mark in that box next to company name and then just keep advancing until I reach that page 10. And I'm just going to stop here at page 5. We'll pretend that I'm there already. And then I can select my download. I could certainly print this or save that. But if I want to download that and extract that information, if you're going to make mailing labels, this is mailing label friendly. And if the name of that business, their address, phone, along with some additional elements like that owner or manager, who that, what their title is, and certainly their name, number of employees, sales volume, etc. That's what you're going to find here. And since my Excel documents that I'm going to present here, these are always static. I can't add more information to this. But if somebody were going to download, let's say, a couple thousand records, you could simply do a copy and paste from my static page. And if you open up your own version of Excel, you could drop it in there and save one document versus potentially 5 or 6 of these groups of 250. So if you'd want to do that, you could certainly do that, then minimize yours, close mine. It always brings you back here. You can select back. And then it's a matter of just select revise your search, because you've got to get rid of these check marks. And this is the fastest way to do it. It doesn't forget how you built that. And it gives you that information, brings you back to page 1. And then you just need to remember what page number you left off on. If it was truly I'd done the first 10, then I'd go to 11 and start being able to download more records. So know that that is certainly something that you can do in those batches of 250.
Hey,
Let's
Phil, quick question
Yes.
for you. Will we also be discussing how to understand consumers' preference and buying trends?
Yes, because I have an entire database that will give you that kind of insight. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's do this. I'm going to revise this search just a little bit. And instead of using the county selection, I'm going to throw in number of employees, and I'll even throw in businesses with web addresses just for the heck of it, just to throw in some different filters here. And I'll go with these 2 ranges, and I'll open up my map. And this is a great tool to be able to use as well. So in the left-hand corner, I could put in a physical address. If somebody wanted to put in their own business address along with that city and state right here, they could then do a radius around their business for whatever types of businesses they're looking for. I'll just do, let's just do Berkeley. And I'll say go. So there's my area in Berkeley. I'll kind of center this, move this up a little bit. Now I have several tools here. I could draw my own shape. I could use a true radius. I have some predetermined boundaries, and I could even create a drive route. So drawing a shape is, if you remember that game, Etch-a-Sketch. Anybody play that? Okay, so it's just like that. You start wherever you want to begin. You don't have to use a particular boundary that's here on the map. Maybe I wanted this area right here for whatever reason. Double click to finish it, and then it will calculate how many businesses are in that area that match your criteria. If that's all you need, you would simply say done, and you can see I'm ready to give you those records now. You also have the ability, I helped a gentleman who was with a small business development center, and he contacted me one day and he said, Bill, I know you showed us how to do this, but I don't remember. I have a couple of areas I need to exclude in my map of that drawing I just did. And let's pretend that this was one of those that he wanted to exclude. So there's one record that applies to this group of 53. I can double click in this new shape and exclude that one record from my output. I asked him after we got done, what did we just get through excluding? Because he was in Tallahassee, Florida, and I know that community very well. He said, my customer is rather superstitious and there are 2 cemeteries that he wanted to exclude. So I assured him that nobody would answer there, but he still wanted them excluded. So you can do whatever you need to do with the database. I helped the Chamber of Commerce in Chattanooga, Tennessee use this tool. They were looking at people, but they wanted to be able to do a radius from their community, and their maximum was 150 miles out. And we'll pretend that this is 150. And by the way, that's as far as I can go out. They wanted a certain universe of people in this area. So they wanted a donut hole created, and they wanted to be able to exclude that center and just get the records for this area. So no, you can make all kinds of unique searches based on what are important to you.
One question for you, Bill.
You bet.
With COVID-19 affecting so many businesses, how up to date is the website with the rapid way businesses are closing?
Right. So we have deployed the use of more online research to go out and identify those businesses that have put out on their website that they're closing, but we're still doing our calls just like we normally do, to call those businesses to try and capture that information. That's the same issue that everybody in the industry is having. You know, it's catastrophic, right? It's where do you start, right? So we're continuing as always, except for the more mining that we're doing of websites. And how often are we pushing that information out? Weekly. Okay. So I have the ability to use some predetermined boundaries. It always starts with the state boundary, but if I wanted to overlay, for example, the zip codes in the area, I can do that. And then I can click in any zip code I want, no matter where it's at, and it will calculate how many of those businesses are in that area that match my need. And once I'm done, I simply say done, and as you can see, I'm ready to give you those 17 results. So no, you can use any of these. I mean, this neighborhood, this gets very granular. Not to mention, these are the carrier routes, the postal carrier routes. Those are even more granular. So any of those can be used. And I do want to show you this drive route. And these tools not only can be used in the business database, but they can be used in our consumer databases as well. So these same tools would apply to those other modules. And I'll just do my community here real quick, simply because I know where I can get off to. And this is about 55 miles between Omaha and Lincoln, Nebraska. And then I create my buffered route. So what that would mean is how far north and south of that roadway that the system is going to take me down, how far north or south do I want to go? It could be a maximum of 15 miles. So that's 15 south, 15 north. So it's a maximum of 30 actually. I'll do 0.4 and I'll create my route. And as you can see, it gives me that route from Omaha to Lincoln and how many, there are 89 results listed along that route that match my criteria. And you could even do this. I could say done there, and I can put them back on the heat map. And it always gives you this start. Looks like there's a sore spot over Omaha, Nebraska, but actually it breaks out those listings, gives me that left-hand column, and then I can start drilling in, but I do need to use patience here because you'll want to let it calculate as it's doing in between those plus symbol clicks that I'm doing. So eventually I would have all 89 of those businesses mapped out between Omaha and Lincoln. And of course I have to adjust this map a little bit. I helped a gentleman do this not too long ago, and he was looking for certain manufacturers between two communities in Wisconsin, and we found him 18 results, and then he was just going to have this up on his laptop in his truck, and he was going to go from location to location. So know that you can use that as well. Any questions on the business? Otherwise, I do want to show you, and I'll use this Arby's example. This is a typical look at what a business record would look like. I have also this corporate tree information that I can get in any of my records where there's this kind of structure. So I can open up the record. It's always going to give you that location information first, followed by any of those job listings. I can get to the corporate tree here. I've got the industry profile. So there's that SIC code that drove in those primary restaurants. I'll have that business profile, and we won't have a business profile on every single record. Bob's Garage down the street won't have a business profile for it. Since I work with Google, we have Google Maps embedded in here. Certainly could print this off if I want, use that satellite view. I know that an agency I used to work with in Broward County would open up a record for a location and they would change it to the satellite view. It was their pollution prevention unit. And they would open up this satellite view and drill in to this business to see if it had any types of tanks that would have stored chemicals behind the building or fuel or anything like that, because they wanted to know about, there was a licensure process for them regarding that. So they would use that to identify those businesses that hadn't submitted their funds for that license. Then I've got the business demographics here, 23. We just updated this in March. So we'll update them again in March of 22. There's that management directory, company news. We get this through Bing. Sometimes it's good news, sometimes it's not so good news. I did read an article in here where the parent company has brought on a new subsidiary called Dunkin' Donuts. So I thought for sure Arby's might come up with a donut sandwich, but they haven't yet. I could even get to older articles here if I wanted to be able to do so. So it just depends on what I need to be able to do. Stock data, it's a private company. And even if it were public, we won't put the stock data on the branches. I have business expenditures, some historical information, including historical records. So if I wanted to go back to 2012, I could click on that name for, oh, and when you know it, I get a server error. I'm going to call those server people when I get done. I'm going to try a different year. Well, nope, it still doesn't make any. Ted, I'm going to be calling you any moment here.
Is there a limit to the number of records that can be downloaded?
250 at a time, but there's really no limit. I mean, I guess the limit might be time, right? But if somebody wanted to, they could download a couple, 3,000-4,000 records if they wanted.
Yeah, it's per download. The 250 is per download. So what they would do is go back in and unselect the chosen contacts or the entire page at one time, and then go back in and then select what they want to download. So it can be done where they can continue to just download or transfer into an Excel spreadsheet.
Yep, 10 pages at a time would equal 250. Then I would have nearby businesses because we have that latitude and longitude in the background. And then, of course, a listing of those competitors. So every record is going to be set up just like this. And with that corporate tree information, this option will show me that entire organizational chart. So if you need that kind of access, you can get to that as well. So Arby's is actually owned by this private equity firm out of Atlanta, Georgia. If you wanted to see these other subsidiaries, simply close this one. And I'm sure that you recognize, you know, I was so excited when I saw that. I don't have a problem with Duncan yet. So you can get to all kinds of information here. Just depends on what you need. So what Ted was referring to is it goes back to that selecting that box next to company name, and that grabs all those records. And then you just advance to page 2, get that page, and you can do this for 10 pages and then download all of that information. It's that simple. Questions on the business data? Because I definitely want to show you that consumer information. The steps are all the same. The criteria is different, of course. So we have some great.
Is the library, like Jeff, are you able, if we're using this in the future, do you have staff that assist people with it if they're needing some guidance, or how does the library patron find out if they're doing it right or there's more they could do?
You can call the reference desk. Not every staff person is as brilliant as Bill Carlson is, but you certainly can call the library for help.
Now, Jeff, are you recording this? Because I might need to send that to my mother.
There is a recording. You can send this.
And you can always feel free to reach out to us. Under the Learning Center tab, we have our contact information here in several places. So certainly feel free to reach out to us as well. And anyone that would answer that phone or respond to that email would be able to assist you. And that's all under the Learning Center there. So let's do this. Let's open up the consumer lifestyles. So first off, mind you, we're not call verifying this information. We're getting this from a variety of sources, like membership subscriptions that people have joined, warranty cards that they've submitted, surveys they've completed, if they've joined like a gym. So when I first moved back into Omaha, I started buying my dog food at Petco, and I signed up for a PALS card. I was then identified as a dog lover because of that activity that I was purchasing that dog food. Now, mind you, I wasn't purchasing cat toys. I wasn't purchasing anything else, just dog products. So again, we would come to a quick search. The advanced search is definitely where you want to go when using this tool. And with this, you could certainly do a name search, but most people want to be able to identify those various folks that match their criteria. So if I had, let's say that I had a business, I had a pet boarding service. I think those people are going to be extremely busy when the pandemic is behind us, because I understand dog sales and certainly cats have gone up tremendously. So eventually we're going to want to travel and they're going to have to send their dog somewhere. So if I look at dog lovers and I can do let's just do York County. So I'll select California, Alameda, and I'm going to say 1 per household. In other words, I just want 1 record for each dog lover. Notice we have a scoring system that we apply, and it's 0 through 9. I just took a call on this very issue yesterday. It was a lady that had attended one of these presentations, and she was wondering why she wasn't able to see more results. She forgot that even though we have this scoring system of 0 through 9, we will only show you records of people who score a 6 or higher. So in her area, there were, when looking at just her area, and she was looking at just the zip code, there were like 1,600 dog lovers. And she said, I'm certain that there are more people. So I had to bring her back to this. We're only showing those where we're capturing that information. We don't get any information, for example, from people that shop at a grocery store for their dog food, right? We're not going to know about them. So that's why that number all of a sudden becomes even smaller. So across your county, I have a total of 8,774 dog lovers. Now, I haven't driven in anything else other than number of contacts, lifestyles being dog lovers, and in your county. So, for example, there was a lady that, and this was in 19, well before the pandemic, I received a call from a lady in Scottsdale, Arizona, and she was on a committee that they were preparing for an AKC event, dog event, there in Scottsdale. And they were looking for people that might support the AKC event coming up. So she heard from the librarian, might have been Jeff, that there were dog lovers in the database. And I explained to her, yes, and I walked her through this. And I said, and would you like to also know about those people who are charitable donors? Because if they're dog lovers and charitable donors, they might be willing to support your AKC event. And she said, oh, yes. So we selected that one as well. And as you'll note, if I add these two together, look at my total, over 123,000. Now watch what happens when I go under show more options and I select all that match, meaning these two that match. Now I have a total count of 6,021. This is exactly what their information is going to look like. And notice right off the bat here, we do instruct users that the telephone numbers that might be displayed, not certainly as many as there used to be, might be on the do not call list and should not be used for phone solicitation. That you're responsible for all the compliance with those federal, state, and local laws. So with that said, we can do the kind of hygiene work to a list and get and sell. That's a purchase. That's not through the library. That's a purchase, but we can give you a clean list that could be called upon. Or you can go through the do not call registry. Of course, they charge as well. So this is what each and every record is going to look like. I'll have that residential information. Now, we haven't seen enough information to know if, in fact, he's married or not. Been in this home for about 21 years. There's that estimated home income and home value along with that census information. And then there are the lifestyle interests. So I can tell you right now, I don't know how much they're spending on dog food. I don't know how many dogs he has. I don't know if they're happy dogs, sad dog, mad dogs, or glad dogs. I just know that his record came in because he's a dog lover and a charitable donor. So if we went out and did another search for, say, people that are into fitness, this record may not show up because they're not active enough. They don't score in that 6 to 9 range. So know that there are those kinds of variables. In fact, I took a phone call from a librarian that I work with down in Palm Beach County, and she was looking at her mother-in-law's record. And she said, Bill, this is wrong. And I said, what's wrong? Tell me, what are you saying? She said, my mother-in-law is not at all interested in technology or entertainment. And I said, really? I said, and I'd worked with this lady for a number of years. I said, so you're telling me that your mother-in-law has never bought a game station thing for your children or for your brother's or for your husband's family's children? So she doesn't buy anything like that for birthdays, holidays, snow days. Well, they don't have snow days down in Florida, but you get the idea. So just because something is listed in here doesn't mean that they're real active in that category, but there has been some activity in that category. So know that can be, and you can use any of these filters that you would like to use. So if I want to use any of these lifestyle filters, I can do so. Let me show you this. So we're under the consumer snapshot, and it's a large section here, everything from age down to veterans present. I'll grab a couple of these, and I'll grab a few of these age ranges, and I'll say single. What do I have for records here? So notice, because we took information from that consumer snapshot section, we no longer give you access to records. We consider that sensitive data, and we give you the ability to put that on a chart, a matrix, or a table. And let's say we wanted age and against the zip code. This is what you would get. We take those records away from view as soon as you select anything from this consumer snapshot section. So received a call within the last couple of days. What were they? They were interested in, oh no, it was the lady that was interested in the dog information for her boarding kennel. She was interested, she wanted to use the, where is it? The income. She wanted to use the income range so that she could see the income ranges for those people, those 1,600 that came up in her zip code. But as soon as she added the income, of course, she wasn't able to see those actual records. So she called me thinking something was broken. So I just explained to her that, you know, that's sensitive data, and that's why you can't see that. I suggested that she use the estimated home income as a filter versus this. So every one of our consumer records is set up just like that. Any questions on the consumers? I would like to show you the new movers and new homeowners. So if I sell real estate, this would be a great tool to use. If I sell insurance, another great tool to use. If I have a lawn care service, great. Maybe I own the pizzeria down the street, great tool to use. If I want to learn about new people, and I would go right to advanced search, and let's do, Jeff, what is the zip code that the library's in?
94704.
Okay. I'm going to open up move distance and time frame. So I don't want to know about anybody who's moved maybe from across the bay or from around Berkeley or Alameda County. I want to know about people that are truly new to my community. So I'll say 70 miles is my starting point. And I'll say 2,500 miles. My time frame it always defaults right to that 6 months. It could be as recent as last week or within the last year. Let's look in the last 3 months. How many people may have moved into this area code or this zip code from at least 70 miles out to 2,500? So I have 26. Now, I have the ability to go under residential details and say, hey, show me of these 26, how many of them might be renters? And by the way, there should be a fourth listing here. It's called unknown. In other words, we're not certain. So of the 26, how many are renters? 19. So if I'm a real estate agent, there's 19 people that I didn't know about that have moved into my community within the last 3 months who are renters. I could certainly look at that universe. Or maybe I'd rather look at those that are confirmed homeowners or probable homeowners because I want to market my pizza that I work right down the street, and I want to let them know about my great pizza versus having them see a commercial for another competitor. So this is what the records are going to look like. Again, I get that same listing message here about the do not call, and rarely have I ever seen a phone number. I know that every time I've filled out that national change of address, I've never put a phone number on it. So let's do this. Here's Claire. Claire has moved from 1,559 miles away to come to her new address. So each record is going to be set up just like this. Now I could use other filters if I wanted, but if I truly wanted to know about those new people in my area, I could certainly get that kind of insight. And I'm just looking at one zip code. Imagine if I looked at the entire community of Berkeley. Let's do that just for the heck of it.
Bill, I just wanted to let folks know that it is 11, so I understand people might have other meetings to get to. I welcome you to continue and we'll take questions. But for those who do have to jump off, we will post this to our website later this afternoon.
Perfect. So if I'm looking across Berkeley in the last 3 months, I've got 70 folks that I didn't know about before that have come into the community. So this can be some excellent information to be able to reach out to those new folks to your community. I know the other day I was speaking with somebody about there used to be the welcome wagon. I don't know what happened to the welcome wagon. They may have lost a wheel along the way or something. But this is great data to be able to have. Questions on the consumer or on the new movers, new homeowners? Does anybody want me to do a search for them? Pull up a certain type of business or any consumer data?
When you got those individual resident or newly moved here people's names,
Yes.
did you have more than an address for them if someone was trying to contact them, or was it just an address? They'd have to do hard mail.
We would just have the address information for them. Yeah.
Okay. Just
and what because it's very likely they could have been in the consumer lifestyles database before their move, but we decided as a company to forego with any of that criteria that we had before, because we don't know that everything is going to be the same at this new address, right? Maybe they were single when they were in the consumer lifestyles and they've moved here because they're getting married, or maybe they had a dog but they didn't bring it with them, right? So it's pretty raw data at that point. Well, if there are no other questions, all of these other modules work the exact same way that we've talked about with the business, with the consumer lifestyles, and with the new movers, new homeowners. Exact same processes. Ted, anything you want to add to the mix?
Yeah, just a quick blurt out to everybody. If you have any questions as you're going through these modules, you could actually contact the library itself or us at Reference Solutions at the toll-free number. And Bill, I think it's listed if you scroll below, way to the bottom of your page. There is a toll-free number at the bottom there that you can call. And we have reps throughout the country that will answer any questions you may have. There's sometimes glitches when people are trying to run through counts going from one page to the next. In fact, prior to our meeting, we actually had one with Jeff, and what happens typically is a load of cookies on the system will tend to break the pathway of where you need to go. So you just have to clear your cookies from your system. But if there's anything else, any questions or at all, then you can call that number at the bottom of the screen, and one of us will assist you.
Great. Well, thank you so much to Bill and the library for providing this valuable tool to all of us. Very informative, a lot of data. So I'm sure we'll all be experimenting with the tool in the coming days. So I want to thank you all again so much for attending. Thank you for coming to the past 5 sessions. Thank you to the Berkeley Public Library. I encourage any of you, if you're interested in learning more about Berkeley Chamber and the other programming we offer, please reach out to us. And we'll be sharing the link to today's recording along with a survey later this afternoon. We appreciate you taking a few minutes to complete our survey. So with that, I hope you all enjoy the rest of your days, and thanks so much to everybody.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
everybody.